Ah, fuck. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Hey, we got a new location. For reasons I refuse to disclose, I have been kicked out of my room and am now in the refuse-filled add-on to my house called The Office. It's not an office. There's a bed and an exercise bike. This is a place where people go to live forever in exile. It's the shadow realm of my house. Also, I don't have to use my shitty laptop webcam because apparently my phone takes way better footage than OBS can manage on my Dell Inspiron that I got 4 years ago. So as a writer, this may come as a surprise, but I believe it's actually important to read and learn from other novels and improve my writing through what I see. I am certainly not alone in this belief. I think like 95% of writers agree with me on this. And I thought maybe I could do book reviews on this channel, but then I thought, oh wait, everyone else is doing book reviews. So here's my compromise, okay? I can sort of point out what each book I read has to offer in the way of improving my writing. So I'm gonna do that with Brandon Sanderson's Words of Radiance. I'm not doing Way of Kings because I read that without looking for stuff to improve my writing, and also I don't have time to read it again. There are spoilers in this video. If you haven't read the book yet, you may want to go do that. I am not responsible if you choose to continue after this warning. And second disclaimer, I'm not perfect, I know, shock, but I'm probably gonna miss some stuff, so, you know, take everything with a grain of salt. If you think what I say makes sense, then it might as well make sense. If you don't think that, or if you have some other interpretation that you'd like, that you would have liked for me to say, go ahead and leave it in the comments. I appreciate having more perspectives to look at. I think something in Sanderson's writing that isn't often as pointed out as the other stuff that he does really well is the way he utilizes humor in his writing. I see two main ways that he does that in Words of Radiance. First, he uses it to characterize Shallan. I think it's pretty clear that she tends to make use of her wit whenever she feels uncomfortable or uncertain. And I think it's a pretty brilliant way to show rather than tell. Kaladin also uses humor as a sort of coping mechanism when he's in prison and while he's trapped in the chasm with Shallan. And giving characters certain takes that the readers can learn during the course of the story, I think is a good way to really see what all is possible and what you can do with showing rather than telling. Brandon also uses humor to diffuse extremely tense situations, and avoid making scenes feel overdramatic or melancholy. Again, when Kaladin's in prison and he's talking to Dalinar, I was kind of worried that he and Dalinar's relationship was going to be really strained because Kaladin, he fucked up big time in terms of their plan to get rid of Sadeas. Kaladin's generally sarcastic attitude towards the whole thing made the scene less tense, but in like a good way, and it wasn't like immersion breaking either. I was still concerned about events that like mattered to the plot, like whether or not he was going to get out of prison or whether they would find another way to defeat Sadeas. And instead of worrying about things that would have just made the scene like too stressed, if you know what I mean. And this happens again after Shallan is stranded, after her and Yasna's boat blows up, and with the whole I am a stick thing, which I found particularly hilarious. I think that this book just really shows that humor isn't just a haha funny mechanism and can actually be a tool to be used for other things, and there are plain examples of that here. I also think something really cool about Sanderson is his attention to realism in fight scenes. Not realism as in like no magic or like obey the laws of physics, but like in terms of martial arts, swordplay, and like the difference between being trained in combat and having no idea what the fuck you're doing. Sanderson manages to strike a good balance between concrete blow-by-blow fight scenes and what's going on in the character's head that I really admire and kind of want to learn how to do myself. So seeing examples of that in his writing is always great. And said concrete action actually pays attention to details like stances of and what fighting multiple opponents is actually like. I think this really shines in the duel between Adolin Kaladin and Renarin and the 4 Shard Bearers. Probably my favorite part about the Stormlight Archive is the nature of the Nahel bond. It really focuses on a theme I'm noticing of like being your best self by the way it interacts with character growth. It sort of lets you view progress in both character and plot at the same time. Creating a power system like this, I feel, gives a heightened sense of gratification during the climax because the character is rewarded in a solid, concrete, tangible way as a result of their efforts to be a better person. And granted, you don't have to do this to show the effects of character growth, but this is a neat way to do it without pulling a power, friendship, magic boost out of your ass. I actually felt really smart reading this book. I can understand why a lot of people are afraid to like reveal hints and clues that might cause the reader to piece together a plot twist or a mystery due to fear of like losing tension with the reader. And in certain cases, that's definitely a valid concern. But in a lot of cases, I feel like giving your reader enough clues to piece together answers to certain questions prevents the book from feeling as though it's like stringing you along and gives the reader a sense of satisfaction if they turn out to be right. For example, I figured out that Spren were shard blades pretty early on in the book, but kept reading because I wanted to see if I was right. And there were also other questions I wanted answered. I feel like making your reader feel dumb is probably just as easy a way to get them to put down your book as is revealing all your twists and mysteries. Those are my takeaways from Words of Radiance, but it's a long-ass book, so I definitely missed some things. Also, keep in mind that this was just my perspective. I didn't mention anything that seemed already obvious to me or unimportant for where I'm at in my journey to becoming a published author. Subscribe if you want to see more. Like the video if you liked it. I have a Twitter and Instagram where I use humor as a coping mechanism and post stuff about writing. And once you've got all that done, go write your book!